Because in your mind and what you've been taught,
Yeah.
and what the way the paradigm sits is that these Jews are people that are from Israel. The Jews are people that kill Christ. The Jews are people in Judaism, right? The Jews are the people that only believe in the Old Testament. And again, we talk about the way the Bible defines things in a way, man.
Sure.
Now, whose report will you believe? I think the Bible said who changed the truth into a lie and serve the creature, right? Or the creator.
Right.
So when you change the truth into a lie and you accept the lie, unbeknownst to you, you are serving the creature. But we must talk about this, and I think this will help people understand this concept of being a Jew. Test. I just want to make sure you can. You got me unmuted. All right. Ryan, let me know when you can hear me. Let me know when you can hear me. Yay? Nay? Are we unmuted? Okay. I'll just start. Let me know. We're good? Okay. I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom. All right, we're going to get ready to start our Sabbath class live. Does everybody have a lesson? All right, I'm going to move this here. We want to first start off by acknowledging the churches, Bethel Temple and College here in Chicago. We want to say Shabbat Shalom to those that are in Nashville, Tennessee, and Coral Springs, Florida. We say Shabbat Shalom to the Dominican Republic and those in East and West Africa. We want to say Shabbat Shalom to all of our members around the United States and around the world. We want to say Shabbat Shalom to those that are visiting us, watching the live stream on our Facebook page at hashtag Restoration Gospel, those that are visiting us on our YouTube channel at Bethel TV1. We want to say Shabbat Shalom to you. So we want to talk about a lesson. Today is on Yisrael. And I know that we've had hundreds of lessons on this particular topic. I think it's important for us to digest the material today. And then there are some things that we're going to talk about. Matter of fact, there may be a lot of things that we're going to talk about that's going to give you a deeper understanding into being a Jew or being Yisrael. Everything that we discuss today is not really for you to have an initial discussion with people on the street. Some of this stuff is going to be kind of like your fourth or fifth conversation with them. But I think it's important that we understand the nature, the full and complete nature of becoming Yisrael. This is something that I know Apostle, he talked about it. I just don't remember how many times we talked about this particular topic we're going to talk about today. I know we've talked about it tons of times privately, and there was some mention of some of the things here. That's how we kind of began to write up on this some years ago. But let's talk about the nature of Yisrael. And we're going to talk about something that a few of you guys may be familiar with, phenotype and genotype, and what really makes us Yisrael. I don't think it's too hard of a question if I ask, what do you think it is that makes us true Yisrael? And I just want to get a number of responses. What makes us Yisrael? Do you have a microphone over here? There's a microphone that was behind you. Mr. Bond. There's some wired microphones as well. Just get that off of there and just let somebody hold it.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, Saints.
Shabbat shalom.
What makes a person Yisrael or Israel is by keeping the laws and the commandments by faith and actually proclaiming the name that Yah gave to his sons and daughters as Yisrael.
Okay. So Mom said by proclaiming the name. Everything that we're saying is really foreign. People don't believe that it's even important just to carry a name. But he said that obey all of the laws and all of his statutes by faith. All right, Ronnie, do you hear your hand up?
Yes, obeying all the laws and all the statutes, having your heart circumcised, and to whom pertaineth the covenant, the promises.
Okay.
You know, it's a definition of who is a Jew in the Bible. So I guess
Okay.
we can pertain to that.
And all of this is correct. I don't know if it's therapy for us or if it's therapy for the people who we got to speak to. Again, you have to decipher what information that you use and what information that you divulge, because first of all, what we're going to talk about today, unless you having an honest conversation with somebody and they're giving you an hour or giving you some time, you're not going to have time to go over this stuff. And some of this stuff is kind of so deep. And these are thoughts that I guarantee you when we go through it, you're going to say, people don't have these thoughts. It just makes it a strange conversation, but it's important for us to understand. So let's go and look at our first slide. I am Yisrael. Can I get somebody to read? I am Yisrael. There's a misspelling here and they. But can I get somebody to read the first paragraph?
I am Yisrael. One of the hardest biblical concepts for people to accept is that the world must accept that there are requirements that they must meet in order to receive all the promises of El, including salvation. We must believe and obey the word of El over man, Acts 5:29, who teaches that salvation can be obtained by anyone who is a believer.
Okay, is that difficult to understand who is a believer? Do your friends believe? You guys got friends here that's not here, right? They call themselves believers, right? So if I'm a believer, what do you mean that salvation isn't for me? Okay, let's keep reading.
Throughout the Old and New Testament, salvation has been proclaimed only for the children of Yisrael. Everyone rejects this nation because, as they say,
Wait. Oh, okay. Everyone rejects this notion.
Oh, notion,
okay,
sorry.
because
Notion because they say, I am not Yisrael or a Jew.
Now, does that sound legit? That the Bible, when we look at the Bible, it talks only about Yisrael being saved. It talks about the Jew being saved. But now, how do you have a conversation with people? What are you insinuating to them? So you insinuate, huh? Yeah, that they can't be saved. What is the problem with that? Because what do they think about a Jew? So they think that it's a race, right? So it makes sense. So don't act strange towards them when they fight back. Because think about you hearing this for the first time. I was telling my wife last night in the car. I said, I don't say I'm good at a lot of stuff. I let other people say, you know, you good at that or you great at that. But one thing that I know I'm extremely good at is stepping in somebody else's shoes. And I'm seeing from their perspective how they'll receive what I'm saying or what I want to say. And we got to do the same thing. You know, if somebody told you that you got to be a Jew to be saved, you know that that's extremely hard to accept. You know that makes you seem like you crazy. Why would I want to listen to you? Because you saying that God is biased based off of my race. And that's not what we're saying. So you have to deal with the ideas that they're going to have after you make a statement. Okay? Let's keep reading.
This frame of thinking fulfills the prophecy that was given in Revelation 12:9. That is, that Satan would have deceived the entire world except for the elect, Yisrael.
Now,
Matthews 24:24, Isaiah 45:4.
so now here's where your problem come in. If you don't learn how to explain this, if you don't learn how to explain the bias away when you make these statements, then that blood's going to be on your hands. When you tell somebody that only the Jew going to be saved, they know they're not Jew, but you already know now that the way they think is that a Jew is a race. And so you're like, forget it. I'm not explaining to them. You just going to go to hell. So we have to be able to explain their fears away. That's our obligation. Not to just say what the Bible says, but to explain it, make it plain, and make it clear to them. Let's read Romans 11:26, because now here's what the Bible said. The Bible didn't say, I don't care how you feel about it. The Bible didn't say no denomination. The Jehovah's Witness, the Baptist, didn't say the Christian gonna be saved. What did Romans 11:26 say?
And so all Yisrael shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Sion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob.
Now, let me ask a question, because I'm going to ask a follow-up question. If you don't remember reading it, don't say you know it. Who has read Romans 11th chapter before? Okay. So when it says all of Israel shall be saved, what was this referring to based off of Romans the 11th chapter? Can somebody give me that answer maybe in a minute? Let's say we might have read it, but does anybody remember what that chapter was talking about? Okay. Minister Yosef, is it up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just let me know if you can hear Yosef. It's a delay, so.
All right. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I believe the beginning of that chapter was speaking about Yah never casting away his people, not forgetting who his people were, which is Yisrael.
Okay. There was something else that took place, Brother Baruch, yeah.
Romans chapter 11 is talking about the grafting in of the unnatural branches.
Okay.
And so, is that enough for the answer?
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay. It was talking about the grafting in. So it was talking about the Gentiles who believed were part of that grafting in. The Jews that didn't believe, they were the branches broken off. So whether you're a Gentile that believes and keeps the commandments, or you're a Jew that believes and keeps the commandments, it finished up by saying, therefore all of Israel shall be saved. So it's talking about anybody who's obedient to the commandments is considered Israel, and they're going to be saved. Okay? Romans 9th chapter, verse 4.
Who are the Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of El, and the promises.
So the New Testament, post Christ, said that the promises of salvation, the promises of eternal life, the promises to be the head and not the tail, all the promises that you read about in the Bible is for Yisrael. And then in John, the 4th chapter, verse 21 and 22. Come on, Mark. I'm sorry.
Yashach said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem, worship the Father.
Who's talking? Christ is talking, right? Now, what does he say?
Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews.
Christ said that salvation belongs to who? To the Jews. So, as I always say to people that come into the faith, I told Pastor Andre, I said, when you finish, you're going to be a master psychologist. Because now you have to reconcile what Christ said, that salvation is of the Jews. Now, you know what people are going to say? Well, you know, as Christians and believers, we're going to be saved, and then at some point in the future, the Jews are going to come to accept Christ. Right? Now, you look at me like you've never heard that before. No? Huh? They said at some point, listen, how you going to say Christ's a liar? Christ said that salvation is of the Jews. Now, what they're going to say, well, he didn't say it's of the Jews only. And they're going to find some Bible verses that talk about salvation being brought to the Gentiles. And salvation was given to the Gentiles that believed. And that was grafted in. And that became part of the household of El. But they were called by the name of Israel. They were no longer functioning as Gentiles. So they're going to say, well, I read this and I can't call Christ a liar. So yeah, the Jews will eventually believe, not all of them. And so that's what Christ is talking about here. Don't let them control the narrative. All right. Let's look at our next page. Anybody have anything, any thoughts, any comments? The disobedient seed. I want us to come to accepting this, that there are going to be a lot of people, when the Bible talks about, in I believe the book of Matthew, that people are going to come up on Judgment Day and say, I've done this in your name. I've cast out demons in your name. And what is his response? He will say, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. Hey, the fact that they're standing before him and saying, I've done these miracles in your name. Do you know many of them is going to be Israel? There are people, and we're going to talk about some of our friends who may come from time to time and visit. They think, well, we black, we all Israel. The Bible says salvation is for Israel. Well, we all are not Israel. Although we subscribe to that name. Everybody, that's the beginning part. How many times do we read 2 Chronicles 7:14? That says what? Stop. So now, are you kind of in the ballpark if you call by his name? So he said, if my people, which are called by my name, then what he said after that? And do what else? And what else? And what else? Stop. That means that he has people that's called by his name that are wicked, that have wicked ways. Now, I'm not saying they're out here fornicating. I'm not saying they're out here stealing. I'm not saying they're out here worshiping false gods. But when you don't keep the commandments the way he intended for you to keep the commandments, how he intended, he's calling you wicked. There's some people I love to death. And according to Yah, they wicked. Now, they're not wicked in the sense that they doing all this heinous stuff. But when you put Italian sausage on your pizza, you wicked. You know that's breaking the dietary law, right? You know that's going against Yah. I'm talking about something as small as that. When he tell you to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, or call the Sabbath a delight, and your delight is going to the roller rink, you saying to hell with what you say. That's how he looks at it. That's how you speaking to him non-verbally. Okay? So let's talk about this disobedient seed. Because we have to understand that some of our brothers and sisters who we fellowship with, everybody hadn't gotten there yet. There are people I talked to that came in 10 years later. I was one. I was here. I told you. Friday club night. I'll see y'all Saturday for Sabbath class. Friday was leaving the temple and going getting White Castles. I'll see y'all on Saturday. Yeah, I was half wicked. Hey, I said, listen, 7-day feast. Yeah. 7-day feast is too much. I don't think it's not mandatory. I'll come. Okay, I get the Holy Convocation. I'll be there the first night. I'll be there on the last night, man. I'm not coming. Letting people talk to me on nights 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I see y'all 1 and 7. Right? So, I mean, what I'm saying is you got to get it yourself. So we pray. People don't come every week. People don't come to all the feast days. I don't get into your private life. But, hey, total yeah, because I know where I was at. And I knew the amount of time it took me to get to where I needed to be. I just always believed. So I'm going to tell you what I say all the time. I'm going to tell you to do what I did. When you've been in this world so long and you've been doing things so long, or you got a certain type of mentality, you got to speak to that thing. I spoke to it. Now, you may say you wrong and you may laugh. While I was putting on my steppers or my boots, getting ready to go to step, I said, yeah, you're going to have to take this from me. I was putting on my shoes, getting ready to go out. I was consciously understanding what I was about to do. But I know it was so much in me. I was 23 years old. I was a little young tenderoni. So I wanted to go out. I wanted to have my cocktail. I wanted to do what I wanted. It was in me. So it took Yah. You ain't about to badger me and make me stop. I know it's wrong. I know that it's not pleasing to Yah, but Yah, you got to take it from me. And I said it all the time until he eventually took it from me. Okay? All right, the disobedient seed. Can I get another reader?
The religious world, non-Yisrael, has fabricated this myth that the children of Yisrael fell from the Father's grace, causing him to open up salvation for the world. They told partial truth. It was always the desire of the Father for all men to have the opportunity at salvation. The message of salvation was given to Yisrael, the Jew, first, and then it was given to the Gentile by Yisrael. Romans 1:16. What the religious institutions have done, however, to promote the point, is to use some verses to institute that the entire nation.
Whoa.
Oh, tweaking.
Well.
Verses to insinuate that the entire nation of Yisrael was evil or full of sin. They never show you the verse that they were just presented on the previous page. To the unlearned and untrained eye, it may appear that when all of the Bible verses are not included.
So what are we saying
that
here?
way?
Does anybody know what we're saying? Dr. Tate?
Well, what we're saying here is that a story is being sold, a product is being sold that, yes, Israel was the children of God, but they fell from grace. And so now God opened it up for anybody and everybody. You don't have to be of the seed of Abraham. You can, be a Christian and a follower of Christ, and he'll accept you. Mm-hmm. And they're presenting only portions of the story and not giving the full story. Mm-hmm. They're not sharing with you that the Bible tells us, even in the New Testament, has he cast away his people Yisrael? And he says, God forbid. Mm-hmm. He didn't cast away Yisrael. Now there are people in Yisrael. We just read 2 Chronicles 7:14. Not everyone called by his name makes the choice to humble themselves, to pray, to turn from their wicked ways, to seek his face. Now, you still have to do all those things even when you're called by his name, but it doesn't mean that because some people didn't do the right things or didn't do what El called them to do, that he cast away his whole people, and that he still isn't the El that doesn't change, right? He says, I'm the Lord God and I change not. So he gave his doctrine to his people, to Yisrael, for them to bless the entire world. Mm-hmm. And that looks like for them to share his message with the entire world, and for them to be able to be grafted in, to become Yisrael, to become his sons and daughters, so that they too can have part in salvation.
Okay, good. I'm going to ask a question. I ain't going to ask Brother Glenn because I asked him this before. I didn't ask for no rebuttal. I know Dr. hate when I do this. It's yes or no. Yes or no. By the hands who say yes. I'm going to show you what they do with the Bible. and how they try to use the Bible by hands. Is America a wicked nation? How many people say yes? Is America a wicked nation? 3, 4, 5. I said don't ask. No, the United States. Is the United States a wicked nation? Good. I got I got about 80%, 90% of the class said yes. America is a wicked nation. Okay. How many people in here are citizens of America? Hey, if you're not, don't raise your hand. ISIS might come through here. All right. So yeah, bad joke. Everybody here is a citizen of the United States, right? Then you wicked. You wicked. You wicked. Well, no, you said America was a wicked nation, right?
That was an easy yes, no. That doesn't mean everyone that is a citizen
Okay.
of the United States of America is wicked.
So it doesn't mean what? Not everybody that's a citizen of America wicked. But overall, we know that America is a wicked nation, United States. So they're doing the same thing with the Bible. We're going to read a couple of Bible verses that talk about Yisrael being evil, wicked, all these terrible things. But was everybody in Yisrael wicked and evil? And so they control the conversation. Like if you're a novice and somebody show you this and you don't know much about the Bible, if you came to this class and I said Yisrael is the people of God, and I'm giving all these positive Bible verses, and a person was like, man, I believe that Yisrael is the people of God. You're going to go back to your evangelist or pastor, and he's likely to control your thinking by giving you a number of different Bible verses that says otherwise. Okay. Let's look at the first one in the book of Isaiah, the first chapter, verse 3 through 4. Can I get somebody to read that Bible verse? And then somebody else read Judges, second chapter, verse 11.
Coming from Isaiah 1, 3 and 4. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Yisrael doth not know. My people doth not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Yehovah. They have provoked the Holy One of Yisrael unto anger. They have gone away backward.
So this is one of the favorite Bible verses of Jehovah's Witnesses. And when you tell them you Israelite or you Israel or Yisrael, they're going to say, well, yeah, I know that Yisrael was his people. But let me show you what the book of Isaiah said about them. So now, God has gotten rid of his people, Yisrael, and has transferred salvation to the Jehovah's Witnesses. Based off of Isaiah, the 43rd chapter, verse 10, ye are my witnesses. Yeah, right. They say skip verse 1. But you know how many millions of people being Israel or a Jew, or even if that's a possibility, the churches have taken this out of their head because they have already presented these Bible verses. Let's look at Judges, the second chapter, verse 11.
And the children of Yisrael did evil in the sight of the Adonai, and served Balaam. And they forsook the Adonai, God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods of the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Adonai to anger.
Oh, I almost said something that I was going to speak on. This just shows you the disobedient nature of Yisrael. So we can't get caught up on people. We can't get caught up on friends. We can't get caught up because I don't care what you've seen in your life. You've never witnessed what they witnessed coming out of Egypt. You never seen the water turn into blood. You never seen that. You never went to the lakefront and Lake Michigan split and you walked on over to Indiana. Right? These people seen this. with their own eyes, and yet they went to serve other gods. They were guided by fire, and yet they still did that. So you talking about a stiff-necked people, a disobedient. I was telling me and Ronnie was talking yesterday, and they were so disobedient that 600 some thousand came out of Egypt, and there was only a handful. I can't remember how many made it to the promised land. 20. Yah killed all of them in the wilderness. You know what that means? That means like a batch of bad. Well, I don't say a batch. You can have one bad apple in a barrel. And you know, before too long, all of those apples are no good. So you got to watch who influences you. Watch what you hear. Watch what you talk about. Because people will destroy your soul. And you not even know that that's what they're doing. All right? Now, I want to talk about this fun stuff. I want to talk about what causes us to be Yisrael. Now, I don't play with folks, and I don't answer these questions. When people see me, especially European Jews, and they may see the menorah on me or something like that, and I was on the elevator one time, and a guy asked, he said, so are you born, or are you converted? Or something. He asked me, was I converted? And I knew what he was doing. I said, no, I was born a Jew. And I just looked at him. Because I don't want you asking me nothing else, because I know what you're doing. I think one time somebody else asked me, he said, oh, is your mom from, your mom from, I said, no, well, my ancestors, my ancestors from there. And then I looked at him. Hey, don't ask me nothing else. Because I know what they're doing, especially if they're a Jew. All right. So what makes us right with Yah? What makes us who we are? What makes us the true people of God? It's not about your parents. It ain't about your brothers, sisters. It ain't about your cousins. It ain't about your friends. It's not about this bloodline that came from Fred Penner. It ain't about that bloodline. But it's about a different bloodline that you become a part of that makes you a physical Jew. Now, you were predestined before the foundation of the world, but there's something that happened. Paul used to say it this way: we're going through a blood transfusion. We're going through a DNA manipulation that's causing you to be his sons and daughters. Don't you look to the left. Don't you look to the right. Don't you look at your children. Don't you look at brothers and sisters. Don't look at your parents. Everybody got to get it. Everybody got to get it for themselves. So let's look at what makes us part of his lineage. Can I get a reader to talk about this next section?
The $1,000,000 question, therefore, is, if salvation is only for true Yisrael, how can anyone be saved?
That's what they asking themselves. They asking a question, they're ready to punch you in your nose at the same time. Because you told them that salvation is only for Yisrael. But you're saying something else at the same time. You going to hell. That's what they hear you saying. You can't be saved. So there's an order by which we got to speak to people. You better not say the wrong thing first, because you've lost them. All right, come on.
Surely we don't serve an unjust God that only allows salvation for one group of people and yet shut out others. If I was not born in the land, how do I then become Yisrael? Spiritual Yisrael people can understand, but physical Yisrael is something of a mystery. How does the Father transform a person so that they are physical Yisrael? Is this possible?
Now, there are people, the ultra Orthodox Jews don't do it, but, there are moderate Jews, and I forgot what other denominations of Jews that will allow you to be converted. The funny thing is, you don't even know that you're a second-class citizen to them. They're going to accept you as a Jew, but you will never be like us. Now, on the other hand, there are a lot of people that have these Hebrew Israelite camps. Mr. Yosef and I came from one. Brother Baruch, y'all are probably familiar with the concept I'm about to say. There are some Hebrew Israelites that will say, you ain't black, Puerto Rican, Mexican, Cuban, whatever. You a Gentile. In fact, you can be washing my socks and my underclothes in the kingdom. You're going to be our slaves. Now, you know there's a doctrine like that, right? That you're going to be our slaves in heaven? You got slaves in heaven. Right. There are other Israelite groups that say you can be a part of us, but you can never be us. The best you can do is you can become spiritual Israel, but you can never become physical Israel. How many people have heard that before? Anybody heard that? You can be spiritual but not physical, right? Because you don't look like us. I got news for you. Guess who looked like you? And y'all cursed. The Egyptians. Guess who looked like you and God cursed? The Hamites. He had seen a whole bunch of folks look like you, didn't make you the people of God. So throw that out in the trash. But we're going to talk about these two different different type of terms, two different types. Genotype, phenotype. Who heard of that before? Oh, I know Dr. Tate has for sure. All right, let's talk about genotype and phenotype. All right.
The word
and I want you to understand when we talk about this, I want you to think about Yisrael. All right. And if you understand genotype and you understand phenotype, then being Yisrael will start to make sense to you without us even explaining it. All right. Let's go ahead and read the first one.
The word genotype can also refer just to a particular gene or set of genes carried by an individual. For example, if you carry a mutation that is linked to diabetes, you may refer to your genotype just with respect to this mutation without consideration of all the other gene variants that you may carry.
Okay, that might not be clear to some, but when we find out what phenotype is, we want to talk about the difference or the similarities, if there are any, between the two. What is phenotype?
Phenotype is a description of your actual physical characteristics. This includes straightforward visible characteristics like your height and eye color, but also your overall health, your disease history, and even your behavior and general disposition. Do you gain weight easily? Are you anxious or calm? Do you like cats? These are all ways in which you present yourself to the world, and as such are considered phenotypes.
Okay. So, let's discuss. Does anybody have anything? What's the difference in a phenotype? Can you give us examples in genotype? If we were all in a group. Well, go ahead, Dr. Tate.
When you think about genotype and phenotype, I guess one thing that I think about that's important is that the things that you carry in your genes, your makeup, your cells, your DNA, don't have to always be expressed in your phenotype and how things look, what diseases you carry or you end up having. So one example is that, they've sequenced the human genome, and you can assess people's genes and determine if they carry a gene that makes them more likely to have a cancer. So like most people have heard of BRCA, right? It's a gene that makes you at much higher risk of breast cancer, ovarian cancer. And we know that compared to the average population, their risk of these cancers are way higher than the general population. But just because you have that gene that's abnormal or different from what's typical does not mean that you go on 100% to have this condition, to have breast cancer, to have ovarian cancer. So we think about the genes being what's like made up in your DNA versus the phenotype being like what actually happens to that person. Do they have the disease? Or like you mentioned, like what is their height? What is their hair color? And that comes from the genes that you get from your mom and from your dad. And then some of those things express themselves, some of them don't. Some of them are what we call recessive. So maybe your grandparent has a red hair and your parents don't, and then you end up with red hair. Well, you could have had some kind of recessive gene that presents itself a generation later.
Okay. What are you saying? What are you saying?
Yes. So Sister Ronnie was asking a question of, she asked, would you say that a phenotype is like a manifestation of what you carry in your genotype? And I would say yes and no, because not every every gene that you carry doesn't have to be expressed. But typically, if you have something that is expressed, it is coming from your genes, if that makes sense.
Does everybody understand that last part? Whatever's in your gene is going to be expressed. Or not. But when we have kids, like if we put. You can't express something that you don't have in your genes. So now let me ask this question. If we all got all our kids in here, or some family members, can we somewhat identify who belongs to what family? Yeah. And that's based off of what? The phenotype? Yeah. Did that come from the genotype or no? Yeah, right. You can't see the genotype, but you see the phenotype, right? Okay. Now I want you to think for a minute before we go on. I want you to think about Yisrael. I want you to think about what we said. Yeah, how does this relate? How do we become Yisrael? And it's parallel, right? I mean, it's how can we apply the same thing? You don't have to get Bible verses or anything, but let's kind of talk about that.
I think it goes back to your example earlier when the guy on the elevator asked you, hey, were you born Yisrael? You know, were you born in this culture? And yeah, that's what he was looking at. But when we are born again, like you mentioned earlier, you know, there's a blood transfusion. You know, our entire DNA has changed. Our genes are changed. And the physical representation of that is us doing the will of Yah, is us following Yah's commandments.
Okay.
And that's how you're going to be able to identify Yisrael.
Okay. I need to write stuff down because I got questions, but I mean, it was statements, but Amon and then Ronnie, I don't want to lose what you guys have to for that.
Yeah, so typically what I would say is, especially in relation to Yisrael, as we talked about, the genotype is in your cells. I don't know what's in your body unless I use all these different types of microscopes and different materials, but I can tell whatever's inside of you by your phenotype, because you're going to start showing me characteristics and different things like that. And so if I'm keeping the commandments, which is a phenotype, you'll see me doing it. If you see me praying, you see me fasting, you're doing all of these things. You want to say something? No. Oh, if you see me doing all of these things, you'll see that, okay, you don't know for sure, but what you can tell is, okay, I have these things on the inside of me, therefore that's what makes me Yisrael. You see my actions, and therefore you can conclude that there's something going on inside my heart or inside my DNA. Instead of the flip side, you know, say like the example that you use, the guy looking at your phenotype is in, oh, were you born? Well, what he's doing, although he asked where you were born, although looking at your phenotype, is trying to figure out your genotype. Oh, okay, are you from the blood of Abraham? Is your blood the same as mine? But that's not what being Yisrael is about, because as I said earlier, what makes one Yisrael is keeping the commandments and the laws of El. And if you're doing that, I'm going to see that, you know, physically in phenotype rather than genotype.
Okay,
So.
Anybody else? Good.
Just as he took a lot of what I was going to say, but I'm going to add a little piece based on what the conversation we just had about the genes, how some of them are dominant, some of them can be recessive. Those who have been predestined, they all have it in their genotype, but whether or not we allow those genes to become part of our phenotype, I think that's what separates true Yisrael from not true Yisrael. That the phenotype being the observable physical traits, characteristics, those genes have taken dominance. And so it's, you can see it. It's the whole circumcision of the heart has taken place. So now you can consider yourself Yisrael because those phenotypes. Now, when you have the gene, but you haven't quite gone through that blood transfusion, or you have not completely had your heart circumcised, then your phenotype is going to show something very different.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge you in a minute. Okay, I'm gonna challenge you on. Well, not really challenge, but Amaria.
Talking about the phenotype reminds me of the Bible verse we just went over, 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, who are called by my name, so you can tell true Yisrael versus false Yisrael by the phenotype, because you can call yourself Yisrael, but then it also states you have to be called by his name and then also do these things. So that's how you can tell by their actions who's true Yisrael, because they're going to meet all the requirements and not only just take on that name, they're also going to do the law and the commandments.
Okay, good, good. Dr. Tate, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to briefly kind of talk about this from the perspective of what like the world says, or the Judaism says versus what the Bible tells us. As evidenced by the conversation that you had, that you described to us, Judaism is telling us that it's a race, right? Mm-hmm. That if your mother is not a Jew or not from the land, then you can't be of the genotype of the bloodline that would make you a Jew. And so he looks at your race, looks at the color of your skin, and made an initial assumption saying, I can see with my eyes that you're black. And so now I see you wearing certain things that I would expect someone who is a Jew to wear. And so now I have to reconcile this confusion. I'm seeing you behave in a way that I would expect, or wear things I would expect a Jew to wear, but your race doesn't fit with that. Mm-hmm. So now I need you to help me match these things up, which are confusing in my mind. Yeah. And they're only confusing because the world has made this narrative that being a Jew is completely about this race and this physical bloodline, and that you cannot become a Jew because you can't change your race.
Sure.
But what it's failing to recognize is that from the beginning of time, people were grafted in and became Jews. Mm-hmm. That it is a crossing over process from the beginning. And that even beyond the phenotype of doing certain things, right? You were wearing something that led him to believe that you might be a Jew, whether you were born or you were converted. So wearing certain things is a phenotype. Not going to work on the Sabbath is expressing your phenotype. Not eating certain foods is expressing that phenotype. It's all tracing back to what is in you. And I think it's also important to remember that we're not just talking about spiritual Yisrael. And, this passage we just read saying that it's a mystery. Every year during the Passover, we go through an operation where we're taking on the blood of Mashiach. And so we are becoming a part of that family, both physically and also with the behaviors that we have, that's showing these different phenotypes that cause this person to question you because you were confusing the paradigm that he's been taught all his life.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Anybody else? Amon?
Talking about genotypes and then it showing up as phenotypes, it reminds me of what Paul said, and I don't know if I'm reaching too much, but he talked about that battle with the flesh, because a part of our genotype being born into sin and physical flesh and wanting to please the flesh. However, there's another genotype, as Dr. Tate said, where Yah is doing something on the inside of us to pretty much suppress and kill that nature in which we were born in. And so once you're at that point, it becomes whatever you are going to practice or whatever you believe or whatever wherever your mind is at, especially in your relationship with Yah, will eventually show your phenotype. You spoke about it early in your example where you said, although you were still, getting on your shoes, getting ready to get that, Yah was doing the work in you. You see what I'm saying? And eventually that changed, your phenotype. You know what I'm saying? Sin want to make rain in your mortal body. You want to do good, but Yah eventually comes in and say, okay, let me suppress that and kill that, But that's more so that your walk with Yah and what you consciously decide to choose, in which it kind of starts to show your phenotype in relation to, are you going to continue to be born in sin and live in it, or are you going to live this holy, righteous life because Yah put his, word on your heart. So
Right.
that's it.
Okay. Good, Mr. Yosef. Your body language say it. I know you got something to say.
Well, if you read Isaiah 56, it's a short chapter, but Isaiah 56. But I'll just bring out 2 verses in that chapter. It says,
Minister Yosef. Well, I'll give him the wireless. Those mics might not be turned up as loud.
okay, that's
You said Isaiah 56.
Isaiah 56. I'm just going to go to just 2 verses. In verse 3, it says, neither let the son of the stranger that has joined himself to the Yehovah speak, saying, the Yehovah has utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. And then at verse 5, it says, even unto them will I give in my house and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off.
Okay.
So it's showing in this chapter that everything is based off of behavior based.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying it don't matter who you are, where you come from. If you choose to keep my covenant, keep my Sabbaths, do what I said to do, then I'm going to give you an everlasting name that shall, that won't be cut off. So the theory that the world has that God has replaced his people, that replacement theology, this chapter in this Old Testament, it goes completely against it, saying anybody can become his people.
Yeah, we got a lesson we did some years ago on replacement theology. We got to talk about that. Let me ask this question. Does all of Yisrael, is there a gene in all of Yisrael that's the same? I'm talking about genotype. You talking about there are things in our DNA. Yeah. Do we have the same genes?
I would say
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I would say yes, and that's just a part of the predestination.
Okay.
Can I add to it or just?
You can
answer
add.
yes
I
or
mean,
no?
if you want to add to it, you can add to it.
I'll add to it by saying, yeah, we all have the gene, but then in order to act, it has to be activated.
Okay.
What do
Okay.
you call it when you have a gene that's just it lays dormant until it does what?
So you said
It's
recessive.
suppressed until it. Not a recessive gene, just dormant versus right. Okay, so activated.
Okay.
I'm gonna say yes, I agree with that statement because the Bible says my sheep will hear my voice. So if there's lost sheep out there and they will know and hear Yah's voice, that means that there is something planted inside of them, like some type of seed where they're going to know when it's Yah. So I agree with that
Okay.
statement.
Come on.
I mean, to add on to what she said, Paul said, I believe it's Paul, he said there's neither Jew nor Gentile, bondman or freeman, but we are all one in Mashiach. So if we are all one in Christ, that means that we all share something directly, in relationship with each other that was in Christ, Mashiach.
So that's interesting. I thought about that as you guys were talking, that all the true Yisrael has similar genes. We have the same, genetic makeup that affects certain things about us, not, height or whatever. Dr. Tate mentioned about crossing over. So that gene lays dormant, and some people may get it at 20. Some people, gene comes active at 50. Some people have a parent who has the gene, but the children may not have the gene. Some sisters got the gene, but the brothers don't have the gene. And at some point, it's activated. Now, there are people, you'll see them, they're going to do Easter Sunday on Passover. They're going to sit here and go and try to get this blood transfusion. You know, everybody who get a blood transfusion don't make it. Well, yeah, that's when you'll see them. But they will come here. Now, the Bible tells you no stranger should eat the Passover. When you come once a year, and we don't see you no more, you're a stranger. And guess what they're going to do? To make themselves feel good, the same thing they did on Easter Sunday. They come put on their white suit and white shoes, and they're going to come. And it makes them feel saved. I kept the Passover. They're going to take communion. You know, no unsaved person should take the communion. They're going to drink of his blood. And your body's going to reject that transfusion. So we all share the similar gene. And what makes us brothers and sisters? What makes us part of the family? The gene that's being controlled is the gene of the behavior. Now, I don't understand. I mean, I know folks who were alcoholics. I don't want to say drunks, because they functional. But yeah, I know somebody who drank all day. Man, can cook some gumbo and greens and sit there and talk to you normal, but they can drink all day. And I see certain things in people's family. I'm like, man, he drinking. Like, I don't know how that is, you know, what gene it is that make you want to be a drunk. I don't know. But the behavior that we all share is going to be the same. Where you worship, you know, you're going to have an epiphany and a revelation on where you should worship. You know, you're going to have a revelation on where you keep the Sabbath. There are tons of Hebrew Israelites, probably about 1.5 million. And they all worship at different places. Do you know that the gene in you is going to tell you where to come to worship? That you're not part of his? If you go on to this place over here, we got Hebrew brothers that come here. And they don't get where you're supposed to be at. So I can't look at them and say, you're not true Yisrael. I don't know when your crossing over period going to be. But you know who activates the genes? Do you know who activates the genes? Who activates that gene? Huh? Hey, y'all been being y'all. Huh? We activate folks' genes? How do we do that, Brother Burkell? Yeah. You don't activate your own gene.
You mean as far as becoming Yisrael?
Yeah. You didn't activate your own gene.
Says that.
Huh? Well, I'm asking the question. I ain't.
Okay. Shut me down.
No. Go ahead. No. I'm saying I'm not.
I'll say,
ahead.
and then I also want to share something that Sister Naomi shared. From a medical lens, I will share that certain genes get not on. You can't hear me. Oh, certain genes can get activated or like deactivated by environment, right? So you can have things that you get from your parents, and we call it methylation. Like certain environmental exposures turn genes on and off. So if I were to extrapolate that to this situation,
does everybody understand what you're saying? You got genes that lay dormant. Maybe it might be dairy that activates. I don't know. certain things in your body.
So your environment it also impacts your phenotype and impacts how things are expressed. So similarly, your environment could activate this truth in you, what's connecting you to Yah. So being exposed to someone who's in the truth, hearing the word, being around Yisrael, coming to Bethel. Sister Maria talked about the Bible verse that his sheep would hear his voice. You have to hear his voice. And it's not like he's coming to talk to you personally. You're hearing his voice through his ministers, through his elders, through his sons and daughters. So you might be hearing his voice through the podcast. You might be hearing it because we're streaming the class. And so the environment that you're in causes you to hear his voice and for those things that were dormant to then become active.
Does everybody understand? So that's why I was trying to get you. Don't activate yourself. You may start hearing things and get curious. You may be on YouTube and somebody starts talking about Christmas. You're like, man, that makes sense. So it's kind of the process that lead you. You didn't know that you were responsible for activating DNA genes and stuff, did you? When he says, other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also, he gonna bring them. And they shall hear my voice. How many of y'all heard Yah don't go there? I'm not going to even ask the question. About, no, y'all told me to come to Bethel. I was in the shower. And he told me. So you hear his voice through his ministers and through his sons and daughters. I'm saying we got a responsibility. That's why we spend this little bit of time on lessons like that, because I want you to understand you have a responsibility. You got to say enough of something. I hope you listen. I wish I was that good and say, hey, y'all come to church with me. And then once they get there, then the minister say something. But we going to have a responsibility to say something. You got to know something to get folks to come. Of course, you got friends and relatives that just come because you asked them to come. But we got to know something. Who had their hand up? Oh, okay. I think we only going to get through two more.
So this is from our sister Naomi in Nashville. So she was saying that this passage that she shared helped her to view the topic that we're talking about as Mashiach addresses his sons and daughters. So this is from Matthew, the 12th chapter, verse 46. While he had talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood.
Oh, that was our next Bible verse. But go ahead.
She's right on it.
No, go ahead.
Stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. But he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother, and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand toward his disciples and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. Verse 50, for whosoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother. So that's Matthew, the 12th chapter.
Let's skip real quick. Since you read that, let's go to Christ Explains, Amy. It's like two more. Page 5. And then we'll go back. Let's read that. Since you read that, Dr. Tate, let me get somebody to read Christ Explains.
In the Gospel of Matthew, Yashach, Jesus, was teaching inside a house when he heard that his mother and brothers were waiting outside. Yashach responded by asking, who is my mother and who are my brothers? Yashach then pointed to his disciples and said, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. Yashach was challenging the idea that family relationships alone are enough to gain entry into the kingdom of El. Yashach was emphasizing that having a right relationship with El is the most important thing. Yashach asked, who is my mother and who are my brothers in the Bible to redefine what it means to be family. He wanted to emphasize that True family is based on obedience to El and spiritual connection, not just biological relationships.
Right. Do we understand that? Now, I'm not saying to dismiss your relatives and your friends because you don't know. You don't know. They're going to have the gene. You don't know when they'll come in. You don't know. Listen, my mother and father, like that. My sister, like that. But you don't let your mother and your father and your brothers and your sisters and your friends that's not in the Yahweh. You don't put them over your brothers and sisters. And this is what I mean. We fought for a while with my parents about certain things. I wouldn't bring, the kids over on Christmas just certain things like that. So when it comes to that thing, I'm going with my mother Amen, on the Sabbath. I'm going to go and break bread with my brothers and sisters at the temple. Now, some people can't do that. To some people, it's a real challenge because, family is tight. And eventually, they'll get it. My family know what I'll do and what I won't do, what takes precedent. And so Mashika is saying the same thing. Those who share the same spiritual DNA that I put in you, that's who my mother and my brother and sister is. Okay? But anybody have anything to add to that? We just got we can go back one, Amy. I just want to look at this. We got the phenotype real quick versus genotype. It's always amazing to me how the Jews are looked upon. It's always amazing to me that you can have a person from India dressed in their Indian attire that's Catholic. It may seem unreal for you to see a person from Japan being a Muslim. And I don't want to say atheists because a whole bunch of folks are atheists. But the point is, you can't look at a person. You don't look at a person and say that they are Christian or not. I know some roughnecks, dudes and women. I know the Bible says don't judge based off appearance. I look at them like, man, that person ain't saved. And you shouldn't do that because they do it to us. Now, again, most of the time it's going to be based off of your race. They're going to say you're not a Jew. So when we talk about phenotype and genotype, it's not about race. It's not about color. Let's continue on talking about self-manipulation and his people. Right? All this should start to make sense, right, to us, how we become one with him. There are some people who you haven't completed the process, but he'll impute righteousness unto you. There are some people that heard the word. There are some people that have accepted the word. Guess what we haven't done yet? We haven't baptized since last year. Guess what? There are some people that have not taken part of communion. You know, if Yah was to come today, they'll be gathered with him. You know what's going to happen. You know, there's at some point, Yah coming, right? And he going to come as soon as somebody say, I see the light. And they going to see that sky crack open like, man, I ain't get baptized. You know, he did it to the thief on the cross. What happened with the thief on the cross? Yeah. Hey, didn't keep one Sabbath. Now, don't throw the dice and be like, well, I'm going to be like the thief on the cross. Try it. Try it. Right? So our cells are manipulated. I know we say, well, yeah, that sounds good, spiritual. So no, there's something that actually happens. There's something that actually occurs in our body that causes our behavior to change. Guess what you're going to do when that behavior has changed? It's not in you to go out to no party on Friday. It's not in you not to come to 9037 or one of the ministry. It's not in you to say, well, I'm going to get a little piece of chicken on the Passover. Just one piece. Ain't nobody seeing me. It's not in you. It's not in you to drink water on Yom Kippur. Oh, you all don't know. There was folks that was in here. They had a water Yom Kippur. They would drink water. They'll give their children water and come here and shout. So when you change, again, I'm not asking you what you do. I'm not prying into your private life. Because you ain't fooling nobody but yourself. And y'all will judge you because of that. So when he's manipulated you, the Bible talked about being filled with the Holy Spirit and being sealed until the day of redemption. Hey, I want you to seal me to the day of redemption. Because your flesh, look, you say what you want to say, your cells can flip-flop. Right? You can do something and you can, is it regress? You know you can change that cell back. You think because you heard and I'm keeping the Sabbath. I know a whole bunch of folks that came. Dr. Tate, you know all them folks that were here back when we was on 643 North Kedzie. It is like the children of Israel in the wilderness. 95% of them died spiritually. And so eventually you'll see. I don't care. I'm not watching you to see, but eventually you'll see. Okay? Let's talk about cell manipulation and his people.
Cell manipulation and his people. Whenever your genotype is affected, genes and DNA, it affects your outward parts.
Right. Has we been talking about that? Something's wrong. I know people just angry all the time. Like, why? What's wrong with you? There's something in your DNA that you just snap off. All right, come on.
In other words, if your genes' inward parts cause you to be angry or hostile, the evidence will be an outward manifestation. Hitting, yelling, etc. The Father has said through his word that he would manipulate the true believer's inward parts, causing them to behave a certain way. When this is done, the manifestation causes us to do what only his people, Yisrael, can do.
Okay. So he said, I'm going to change something on the inside of you. Why was physical circumcision, why was that? I don't want to say it wasn't good because y'all gave it to us, but it wasn't good. If it was good, y'all wouldn't have phased it out. What was wrong with physical circumcision? Come on.
What was wrong with physical circumcision was it was a sign to show that you were a Jew or Yisrael. But the issue with that was that's just something on the outside. Mm-hmm. So you can get a physical circumcision and not be circumcised of your heart and still break the commandments, still shout and do all of the things that we talked about. And so physical circumcision is pretty much like a badge saying, oh, I'm saved, but your actions not showing it. So,
okay. Right. It's supposed to be an outward appearance. Which, I mean, nobody be seeing it but your wife, but it's supposed to be an outward appearance of what was in your heart. Now, I know you know what I'm talking about. Because how many of your friends wear the Jesus piece or the crucifix on the outward? Don't that supposed to represent something? Man, ratchet and messed up is all get out. In jail, in prison, cursing folks out. It's supposed to be an outward appearance, what was supposed to be in your heart. And so that was temporal. And y'all said, I'm going to do something. If you let me in, see, everybody was doing it, just part of everybody that come here ain't saved. Everybody that keep the Sabbath that come here ain't saved. But y'all said, if you allow me into your heart, if you're sincere, see, the only way I'm going to get into your heart is if you're sincere. If you allow me into your heart, he said, I'm going to circumcise it. I'm going to do something that's going to change the way you think and the way you operate. So Romans, the 2nd chapter, verse 28 and 29 says this. For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly. What does that mean? No, right, so don't look at me. Don't look because, I'm from K-Town. West side. I forgot. You got a little suburban Wisconsinite over here. I have to be. All the streets start with K on the west side, K-Town.
I'm not from here.
we know you're not from here. I'm sorry. Oh, and people that's in Nashville. K-Town is an area in Chicago.
Online listeners.
So it's not the outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly. And circumcision is that of the heart, that Christ is going to circumcise your heart, and he's going to change your mind. And Paul said, I would that you be of one mind. We ain't going to agree. We're not going to agree on everything. And we always laugh, me and Elder Nate talk about this all the time. Because me and Elder Nate disagree probably on everything. I say brown floor, he's like, man, it should be gray. I mean, we so different. We don't disagree on the Bible, but just on, certain things. We were supposed to have a breakfast next month, prayer breakfast. He was like, man, we got a lot going on, this and that. So we said we'll do it after Passover, right? And it was something I think was necessary we need to do. But so we don't agree on everything. But we are in unison when it comes to the work of the ministry, right? And y'all works like that. Sometimes, y'all, I'm not going to say, look, the Lord told me that we're going to move service to 7 o'clock. Don't use the Lord, right? We don't agree. But then we talk our way through what is the advantages or disadvantages. We're not moving services, so don't. But what is the advantages or disadvantages? Why we want to do that? And we try to justify the thing. So y'all work with you through that means, just like he did when Paul and Barnabas came to the apostles to ask about circumcision. Came down to Jerusalem. And they all began to talk and reason. So the Bible says that you are not a Jew outwardly. Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. I'll just skip through this. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. Right? Verse 33, he says, but this shall be the covenant that I make with the house of Israel after those days. No, I was just looking. I stopped. I was reading something else that they broke the old covenant. But he says that this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, that I will put my law. He says I will do it. So it's predestined. No matter how much you cry and boo-hoo, and I want this person to be in the faith. I want somebody to be saved. You don't have the power to do so. And so you can't get yourself wrapped up emotionally in nobody. Apostle used to make me mad because he used to say certain things sometimes. You know, Apostle would say, when he think you acting funny. He came up to Elder Nate. This was like 2 years before he passed. And it was something that had to do with Aunt Ruth. He said something to about when Aunt Ruth passed. And an apostle man, Elder Nate, was probably feeling some type of way. And apostle walked past Elder Nate. Instead of hugging him, comforting him, apostle say, "Hey son, I wish you well," and kept on going. I'm like, man, apostle, cold. But apostle understood. You know how many people that came in the church and apostle loved you like a son and daughter and then left? And so apostle wasn't emotionally attached. He'll love you, but apostle wasn't emotionally attached to nobody. Because you don't know if their genes are set up, are manipulated, are put in, do they have that from Christ? They'll come for 7 years. Listen, there are people who've been here, Dr. Tate, you can witness, you're a witness. People here were here 30 years. 30 years. And tried to take apostle off the top. Tried to sit apostle down. Apostle raised you. Apostle gave you the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and the Kool-Aid all these years. And then you get grown and get older and something just comes. So you don't know just because a person was here 20 or 30 years. He says, I'll put my law in their hearts, their inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and will be their El, and they shall be my people. So he's not your God. If your heart is not circumcised, I don't know. I love all y'all. Don't know if your heart's circumcised. Every week I see you. Every feast day I see you. Every time you got your head covered, Todia. I ain't going nowhere. But you should do the same thing with me. Because if I fall, if I backslide, you don't backslide with me. You don't be so emotionally attached to me. You don't love me so much that you devastate it. He was up there preaching and he was up there teaching the class. He out here mopping the floors. He gone. And now you emotionally messed up. So we love one another. We take it 1 week at a time. I don't think nobody gonna leave. I don't think nobody gonna depart the faith. But I'm not that vested that if you do moonwalk on out of here, that I'm emotionally destroyed. Okay? We're going to do a couple more. I think we almost at the end of the rope. Let's do this, Christ and Abraham. And then we'll continue on after that. But we'll let this be our last one. Christ and Abraham.
You gonna read it?
Whoever.
The Apostle Paul taught that if the Gentiles were converted and belonged to Mashiach Christ,
I got a lot of Mashiachs spelled wrong here. I'm sorry.
that's so good. And belong to Mashiach Christ, they are Abraham's seeds and heirs according to the promise. If we were to validate the Apostle Paul's teaching, we must find this promise in the Old Testament. Yah promised to continuously establish his covenant with the seed of Abraham only, to be heir unto Abraham and his seed. When Christ, Mashiach, blessed all the families of the earth by dying for their sins, his blood transformed all that belonged to Mashiach Christ into the obedient seed of Abraham.
Abraham is the father of Israel. Is that what the Bible says? Who is he the father? He's the father of what? So how come I can't have the promises? Right. So people say, I'm the seed of Abraham. Hey, he was the right? But the Bible, and you got to read enough of the Bible that there's a specific seed, right? There's a specific family of Abraham that is the blessed seed. Genesis, the 12th chapter, verse 3 says, I will bless them that bless thee. He's talking to Abraham, right? And curse him that cursed thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So what are we talking about? The Bible says all the families of the earth are going to be blessed. So how you going to tell me I'm not blessed as a Baptist? How are you going to tell me that I got to be Yisrael when the Bible here says that all the families of the earth are going to be blessed? Dr. Tate?
So, yes, all the families of the earth, this is both a prophecy and a promise. They're blessed through Abraham's seed because he first gave his truth, his doctrine. He promised to give his secrets to Yisrael so that we may do all the words of the law. And so by spreading that good news and his doctrine to the world, that's a blessing. To bless them with the opportunity to become the sons and daughters of God. That's the way the world gets blessed. Now, if you choose to accept that blessing and to heed the information and become his son and become his daughter, that's going to be up to you. But yes, all the families of the earth are going to be blessed by the fact that this doctrine that has come through the seed of Yisrael will be shared with the world, that his doctrine will drop down like dew.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? All right, let's just keep going. I'm hold you responsible for going over whatever we don't go over. Let's look at the promised seed real quick. I'm going to read this. We're going to read one Bible verse, and then we're going to just close out and talk about this. The promised seed. Yah testified about the behavior of the future children of Abraham before they were born. The Bible talked about you before you were born. I'm talking about you that are in here. He said that his seed would obey the commandments of Yah. This is why Christ identified physical descendants of Abraham as children of the devil. Did you hear what I said? You the children of Yisrael, and you are of the devil. I'm going back into don't you get caught up on Israel. Some folks like, yeah, what camp you go to, brother? We all brothers. No, we not all brothers. But he said you are of your father, the devil, because they did not possess the same behavior, DNA, as Abraham. When Yah changes our phenotype by writing the law on our hearts and innermost part, he is changing the behavior of our DNA through the blood of Christ. In John, the 8th chapter, verse 37, right, through 37, 39 through 41. Here's what Christ said, and this will be the last thing, and then we'll kind of just have our own discussion. But here's what Christ said out of his own mouth. Because the Bible talked about the promises going to the seed of who? Okay, well, here's Christ. Because they said, we have been of Abraham's seed. They said they were of Abraham's seed and never in bondage. Christ's response was this: I know that ye are Abraham's seed, but he said, you seek to kill me because my word hath no place in you. I thought that the blessings, right, of the Father is going to be to the seed of Abraham. And Yah's acknowledging that they're the seed of Abraham. He says, Yahshua said unto them, if ye were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. Now, Christ sounds like something wrong with him. Because he just says, I know you of Abraham's seed. But here now he's saying that if you were of Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of El. This did not Abraham. Ye do the deeds of your father. Then said they to him, we be not born of fornication. We have one Father, even Elohim. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and a bold not in the truth. You know, truth is absolute. So ain't no fickle, ain't no back and forth. Ain't no, well, I'm going to take some of this. We got brothers that come. And they say, man, y'all right on that. But his name is Yeshua. Well, you're not in the truth. So you got to eat from the whole. You got to eat from the whole roll. Because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is not a liar and the father of it. And so we have to understand that we have to, and I said this a few weeks ago, we have to examine our hearts. We have to examine. This is based on every individual person. I would hate to be in a situation, right, where my significant or my children, even my friends, I don't like to be in that situation. So only thing I can do is give you what the word says and explain it to the best of my ability and counsel you as much as I can counsel you. But at the end of the day, I think this is what helps me and it gives me therapy. It was predestined. What Yah put in you, he put in you. I can't put it in you. I can hope, and that's all I live off of is hope, that I say something that activates the gene. But if the gene not in you, what is there to activate? So we got to understand this for ourselves, because this is what's going to give you therapy later in life. This is what's going to give you therapy when you have children. This is what's going to give you therapy when your friends are not in compliance of what you're saying. Everybody's not going to do it. And I know I have no way of, causing them to hear Yah's word. All right. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you got from the lesson. What is it that you can use? Everything don't go out there and use. See, brother, let me tell you about genome, phenotype. Like, man, bye. But you say these lessons, you put this in your arsenal for when you didn't got them a little bit further. They're like, man, that's deep, brother. But I got some questions for you. So, how do we look like we look, but we do? Okay, now we can go into this. All right. So anything you guys can offer of substance to the class, to those that's listening, before we close out, something that we may not have covered, that you think it'll be beneficial to the class? Minister Yosef. Do you like apostle? Come here, son. Say something. I'm like, man, apostle be killing me. That go ahead.
Well, I know we kind of briefly touched over, but I'm just gonna go off for something I remember. How Apostle taught us about 2 Chronicles 7:14, how becoming Yisrael is a process.
Yeah.
And that first step in that process that starts the process of salvation is becoming Yisrael and taking on that name. But in and of itself, the name in and of itself is not going to give you the salvation. You still have to repent, you have to pray, you have to turn from your wicked ways. So that's all the components of this entire process. And of course, you have to believe in Mashiach as well. So becoming Yisrael is a process, and it's not a standalone name. You still have to be formed, and part of that formation is doing all those steps in 2 Chronicles 7 and 14 and believing in Mashiach.
Yeah, man. Listen, I want you to think about things in your life. Like, I remember, it might have been 98, 90, yeah, around 1990. I remember, I said, man, this is weird. Who eats rice that looks like this? Who eats brown rice? You know, it was the hardest thing to go from white rice to brown. And I went to brown rice. I said, man, nobody want this stuff. I want my fluffy. And I went back to the white rice. Now I may have did that for 2 months. And then I started eating brown. I tried brown rice again. I might have did it for 3 or 4 weeks. I said, man, I'm going back to this white rice. And then eventually I got on. I mean, I understood the importance of what white rice did, things like that. But then it grew. I eat purple rice now, or black rice. But the point is that it took time. And it took some wrestling. And even when I knew brown rice was healthier than the white rice, it took time. You know, so we go through this same process, and even though we may have the gene, that don't stop. You know, Paul talked about crucifying his flesh daily. So that don't mean that things don't creep up in you. Hey, you better quit playing. Talking something, man, that thing did in me. Okay. Because that sin nature is still there. Todia. For people who wiped out and flushed certain things out of them. Man, there's nothing about shrimp, catfish, pork that you can't convince me. When I say that's dead in me. And so I don't know, you know, that sin nature. I can't think, and I don't want to think of the sin. Oh, what can I do to sin? Now, whatever it is I buried, let it stay buried. You know, but there are some ways about us. A lot of us sitting at home, probably sitting on the floor. It's too much for you to just flip open, get on your knees and pray 3 times a day. Even though you're not doing nothing. Even if it was an hour of prayer, you're not doing nothing. But we don't do it all the time. So although you call yourself Yisrael, I'm guilty. I don't pray 3 times a day, every day like I should. But it should be in us, right? If that's the culture, if that's the behavior that our forefathers did, how come we not doing it? That gene is still, we still working. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think I just need more clarity and understanding on the activation of this gene. I thought that I heard you mention that we have to activate this gene in others, based off of our actions and our, teachings and letting them hear the truth. But then I think about, in the books of Acts with Cornelius and how, the Spirit, led him to Peter. And I'm just wondering, it said that he already had alms. Cornelius already had alms and was devout. So I'm just wondering, I'm not saying that, God is that El is activating this gene, absent of any of us doing any works, but I'm just trying to figure out where does that fit in the place of activation?
Well, I got to go back and read, but Cornelius didn't get that on his own.
Yeah, he had the vision through the Ruach.
No, what I'm saying is Cornelius was exposed. Wherever he was at, he was exposed to something the same way those foreigners that came out of Egypt. With Yisrael, what you think they came out of Egypt? They were exposed to something.
Yeah, he had to learn it from somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he saw it, and he had something in him that he had this burning desire. But see, it wasn't a thing. Whatever he was exposed to, nobody would come to him because it was a law that you don't mingle with the Gentiles. So, but whatever he knew, he did.
Okay. So it's just the slightest bit. If you got it in you, then y'all can activate it. It can be activated.
Well, yeah. Well, but somebody activated it though.
Right. Okay.
I don't think nobody here. there's nobody in here. But everybody heard, somehow.
Well, I mean, I think even just the example of, if I remember his story right, Pastor Andre, he watched that exposure can be through so many things. We have, folks that are in Florida who came across an old YouTube video of Elder Chivri, and I think, I don't know if it was you or
It
Nathaniel,
was me.
and Elder Al, and that made them question what they had been hearing all their life. And that caused them to seek them out and to have more questions. And so something has to cause you to question what you've been taught. And so that exposure can come in so many different forms. But you have to be exposed to something that makes you wake up from this deception, because the deception is ever prevalent. It's pervasive. It's in everything all around us.
Yeah. And how the Ruach can work, like somebody can read Acts 4 and 12, where it says, neither is there salvation in the other, for there's none other. Wait a minute, there's none other name. That means one name. And somebody can read that. And the Ruach can be like, wait a minute. So there's none. Wait a minute, hold on. So his name was Jesus and Yeshua. So what was the name? So you can be exposed to something through reading. And that's what happened with Pastor Andre. And I don't remember what it was. He heard somebody say something, or he read something, and then it caused him to go on YouTube and look. And then Yah will lead you, to those people if you got it in you. But something has to spark that. All right, come on.
I was just in relationship to what was been said. I believe it's Romans 16. He was saying that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. But how can they hear without a preacher? And so, I mean, everybody said it all. You never know in what way Yah's going to expose you, whether it be through a person, whether it be through the podcast. But typically, it's up for us to just make sure, that we in our word and spreading the gospel in whatever way. It could be through music, it could be through clothing brand, whatever way you got going on. But it's different for everybody. So it's kind of hard to tell, which way kind of activate it, because whatever you might have said, the Ruach did that. You know what I'm saying? You might have said something to somebody and you didn't know that you left a seed planted until maybe months later, or the case may be. And so that's what I just wanted to add.
Even if it's in the, I seen John, our guitar player, had posted something. And somebody's like, man, boy, you all was getting it. I love to come and see. So it could be something just like that through the music. It can be through the podcast. It could be because somebody came here for the prayer breakfast. It's like, man, they said something that was. So you don't know how Yah's going to trigger it. But here's what I know. Yah is not coming off the throne to teach you. He didn't do it with Cornelius. But we are still involved and we are still part of the process. So you should be getting ready. What you waiting for? You don't wait. Oh, they here now. I'm about to get it. No, you better start getting it now before they come. Right? You need to start getting better. I said last night, you need to operate in the spirit as if there was 550 people. That's the max capacity upstairs. So you need to start thinking like that. You need to start teaching like that. You need to start planning. You need to start running your services as if there was 500 folks here. Because I'm going to tell you, if they come and you're not ready, now you got chaos. All right, anybody else? Everybody good? Maria, Azaria? Everybody good? You good, Glenn? Brother Glenn? All right. Well, we're going to get ready to end. We went, far beyond our time, but we hope you guys got something out of this lesson. Take it home, read some of the stuff, go through it again, file it somewhere. At some point, you're going to have to get back to it. You're going to have to refer to it, reference this. So we thank, we thank those that are joining us online. I want to encourage you to go to our website, tvbethel.net. We have frequently asked questions. We have a brand new website. I think it'll be launched in 2 weeks. So we're rebranding. all of our websites. So look forward to that to come. We want to encourage you continue to visit our podcast, Restoration Podcast with the Elders. We have in a couple of weeks, I think 5 more podcasts. So I want to encourage you to go to all streaming platforms at My Restoration Podcast. That's it. We look forward to seeing you. I think we have a moon service Wednesday. We have a moon service that's coming up on Wednesday. There you go. Restoration Podcast now streaming. We have a moon service 7:30 on Wednesday. We have the Feast of Purim coming up when? March 12th. What day is that? Okay. March 12th and 13th is the Feast of Purim. And then we have Passover. We do have our Passover fee sheet that's out Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to be here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you got 6 weeks to put your little $15 aside to get you some gas because we got to be here 4 days in a row. All right. All right. That's it. We look forward to seeing you guys next week, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. On behalf of our late restored Chief Shepherd, Dr. Amon, on behalf of Bethel Temple and College, I'm Elder Al. I want to depart you as we greeted you by saying Shabbat Shalom.